Introducing the next level of 7th seal codes. Okay, here we go again. Welcome back. We're going to share and go deeper down the rabbit hole pertaining to Saint Germain light codes. Episode 2 is going to be really interesting because this is where I will reveal why and how the language was assembled. So as we proceed, it should be pretty fascinating. The logic will become evident as I continue to illustrate this greater metamechanics, this greater super system, so to speak. Lots of clues have been left behind. For example, it's pretty interesting to realize that Sir Francis Bacon was the editor of the Bible, as I've indicated before, but also his close friend was the head of the 7 translation teams that were each independently running translations down, and the final manuscript that would become the King James Version Bible was left with Sir Francis Bacon for a year. Is there proof? Did Francis indeed leave his fingerprint? Look at this. 46th Psalm. 46 words from the top and 46 words from the bottom. I think so. And is it possible that the Bible code, which many of you have heard about or read about, which is quite profound in and of itself, prophesizing many things, who put that there? Who saw the future? Who had the ability to do that? I think it's pretty obvious that Saint Germain, as Sir Francis Bacon, would have had the ability to see the future and the knowledge to craft the story in such a way that these codes would be preserved within the written material. Let alone some of the other codes that I've been pointing out, like Acts 7:22. Moses was taught in all the high wisdom of Egypt. 7:22 is the code number essentially for 3.14 because 7 divided by 22 is pi. Which is very telling because we saw the folios pointed to pi as well. So it makes sense that the English language and all these things would be encoded with the building blocks of creation. As we know, the Fibonacci sequence is Mother Nature's formula for creation. Everything unfolds according to it. The Egyptians used both pi and phi in all of the temples so that everything would be in divine harmony and empowered with essentially the essence of creation. There will be several core pillars of this foundational understanding that we'll continue to reference, that it's important to really comprehend. So, for example, the number table and its correlation to frequency is the centerpiece. In many ways, this is the most profound thing, that the sequence correlates to the language, correlates to frequency. It is divine intelligence in so many ways. So it does make sense that the language would be tied to this, so that our spoken word is empowered with the creational mathematics, as it were. As you watch all this, you're going to see various threads running through it all, such as Moses and the theme of the twin brothers. There'll be a few. So speaking of Moses, check this out. Was he the father of language? Was he a incarnation of Thoth? Who are the fathers of language? We shall learn all this and more. The divine source code of numerology and astrology was imbued into our language so that we could speak the language of light and co-create a golden age of conscious awareness. This knowledge was passed down to us, hidden inside the language. This began with Thoth and was continued by Tutmosis, who took the wisdom of Egypt out in the form of language and passed it on into the Hebrew construction of a language of light. Sacred vowels, 22 letters, shapes that mirror reflections of a torus coil. This is Stan Tenon's work. Check it out online. We'll probably cover it in future episodes to a degree. This wisdom was further codified by Sir Francis Bacon before he became Saint Germain. He was commissioned to the team lead, his friend, as indicated, on the King James Version Bible construction and laced keys and codes into its pages. He was remembering his previous lifetimes in Egypt and reseeding the codes and keys into the English language when he and his team finalized early modern English, while adding the J to the alphabet, which aligned and locked in all the higher levels of the divine number codes and frequencies, which is what this Saint Germain codes is all about. And this is what I've been recovering, remembering, decoding, and tapping for about 4 years now. So this is very exciting for me, as I hope it is for you. This is groundbreaking material. Some research on who created the Hebrew language reveals, according to Eupolomus, it was Moses who invented the alphabet in the Sinai and taught the people of Israel. The Phoenicians got it from the Jews and the Greeks got it from the Phoenicians. In the opinion of Herbert Grime, late professor of Semitic languages of the University of Munster, Germany, the Mosaical tablets of the law were one of the first, if not the first document in alphabetic script. Of course, the Egyptians had script. Let's take a look at that. That was certainly a lot earlier. Before the invention of the alphabet, Egypt had already a highly complicated phonetic script of consonants consisting of almost 3,000 unilateral, bilateral, and trilateral hieroglyphs. The simplification of script was a political issue. Anybody who had gotten a good education in Egypt, as Moses did, knew that the 27 one-consonant hieroglyphs were sufficient to write the language. The exodus of the followers of Moses from Egypt in about 1441 BC was the time for the introduction of the alphabet. A simplified script of 22 letters made literacy and learning available to everybody. Of course, those 5 vowels remain secret, hidden, and unspoken. Pythagoras and other ancients believed that everything was interconnected. Let's take a look at how. This is the underlying way that the language of light is incorporated in our calendar, clock, and reality. Looking again at the 60-digit circuit, or the Fibonacci wheel that rolls out the last number in 60 count around a wheel. What's so significant about that? Beyond that it repeats every 60, just like the rest, the 24 count Fibonacci repeats every 24 times, the 9 count repeats every 9 times, so on. But beyond that, when we overlay a clock, the 5 demarcations or intersections fall right on top of the hours, as you can see here, other than the 3, 6, 9, and 12, which are the points of the equilateral cross. These are also the cusps, as you can see. This is pretty profound that 10-degree decans make sense for 36, 360 degrees. But it even gets more interesting. As you may remember, the 369 cipher starts with the letter A at 6, and then B at 12, which is 6 plus 6, and then C at 18, which is 12 plus 6. So, plus 6 is important. Here's why. Look at the 10, 20, 30 degree section at 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 o'clock. What's 1 plus 2 plus 3? 6. What's 4 plus 5 plus 6? Well, we know when we have a 9, just drop it, so 6. And then as you go around the wheel, you can always be assured it's plus 6. The pentagram fits perfectly, touching 5 points, which are 72 degrees apart. Each of these 5 points add up to 9 respectively. Is this why all these were made to add up to 9? Most likely. Also, pay attention to the seasons. They are each 6 characters in length, as we've covered before. However, ever pay attention to the 5 senses: touch, smell, taste, sound, sight. Each of those add up to 5. Rather, each of those have 5 letters in the word. Must be pretty significant or important. Well, the word itself, 5, has phi in it because the shape of the pentagon or pentagram is most conducive to phi, as it is hidden within the star. You can see the red marks. The junction points delineate phi, the distance, perfectly. The 5 Chinese elements that correspond to the most important organs in their medicine system are 5. The Marco-Rodin tube torus has the primary sequences as 5. It's also interesting to note that the 24 points that go around the wheel, when you match them up from the left side to the right side, they all add up to 9. And within those sequences, you can find 5 sets of 189 or 198. 189 times 3 is 567. That's another one of our key pillars. Any number that adds up to 9, which 5, 6, that's 11, 7, 9. 819 is another one of our combinations of the 189, and that times 2 is 1638. When you take 1638 plus the 567, it is 2205. That number obviously has stood out in a variety of ways as the Silver Gate and my birthday. It was most profound for me to realize when I first discovered the 369 cipher. I ran my name Matthewis and it came out to 522. That really blew my mind. It made me wonder if I left a message for myself. Especially when my birth name in simple numerology adds up to the distance in pyramid inches from the beginning of the Grand Gallery to the corner where you can go exit the pyramid or go deeper. All these things definitely inspired me, encouraged me, or intrigued me to keep digging. There's an elaborate system of divine intelligence that are the creation codes that make up the sacred science that everything has been outpicturing from. As indicated previously, there are some 27 different number sequences that are the leaves and branches of this system that run to the roots. The roots being the numbers that always add up to 9. They're clues that are almost like threads. When you pull on them, they reveal patterns. The patterns have 9 as the guiding control or underpinning wisdom, with an overarching knowledge of the microcosm and the macrocosm of everything in the universe as a reflection or holographic image of what is found in the human. All the math is always seen as self-aware, always working and interlaced with nesting properties. Self-aware intelligence that reflects as above, so below. As within, so without. These are the Hermetic phrases that are keys to understanding everything. We saw this number 1188 echoed in the first Shakespeare folio, demonstrating an understanding of these basic tenets. The key words that describe the story or the path of awakening, raising consciousness, ascending our thoughts into divine consciousness, the process of apotheosis, becoming a god or goddess, is highlighted in the middle pillar. The middle pillar is 459. Each of the words that are 4 letters long add up to 666, which we've seen to be nothing evil at all. In fact, the most important things were put right in front of our face, and we were told not to look at them, to fear them. 6 protons, 6 neurons, and 6 electrons is the carbon vehicle, as I've spoken of before, and mastering this physical body and the emotional body are the keys to ascending consciousness. The church wanted to cut us off from our sexuality. In fact, XXX, we all know what that means. That is letter 666. X's are sixes. The church wanted us to think that sex is bad. I believe they didn't want us to unlock this divine language, this super number system, the magic number science. I'm going to show lots of evidence and proofs that all that I am saying is true, because it is demonstrated over and over in a variety of ways. In fact, I will show you that it was painstakingly undertaken to fashion the English language to echo this divine information. That the pillars that erect the story of ascension have all been coded. Those words that represent the pillars of the whole truth have been ingeniously designed to mirror the metamechanics of the universe. Adding the J and having it land at the position of 144 was ingenious for a variety of reasons. It demonstrates an understanding of the divine numbers that creation, as Mother Nature's formula, unfolded from. The Fibonacci sequence has 144 within it, as we've seen in numerous other slides, representing a divine number. Now we're beginning to understand how this number falls into the story. The ancients believed that the 5 vowels were sacred, and they actually had ceremonies that used them, chanting them in activations and initiations. The numbers of the vowels reflect the information supporting the process for awakening consciousness. 15.6 and 9.6.3 as the core code values. 5 Platonic solids are the building blocks of creation. 1 for each sacred vowel. 369 also matches the pillar table and the respective number of letters of the words, 3, 4, 5. Again, the flag is red, white, and blue for a particular reason, to carry the frequency of this understanding and that of the correlation to the Great Pyramid, Pythagorean theory, and the dimensions, further echoing or mirroring pi and phi. We're going to see how these light codes and holy keys correlate to the Great Pyramid here in a minute. But first, taking a deeper look at the super wheel, if you will, the positions of the hours or the cusps actually are 3, 6, 9. You can focus in on 1 o'clock, it's 30 or 3. 2 o'clock is 60 or 6. 3 o'clock, 9. And as you do numerology, you can see on the next one, 120 is a 3, and around the wheel we go, 369, 369. So the super wheel can be superimposed or understood as the keys to the zodiac, as well as the hyperdimensional math that those in the secret space program reference when they say that we only understand a fraction of the zodiac, indicating that synchronized portals occur when certain alignments on dates and times open gateways. We have seen many ways that the Golden Gate, November 22nd, is key, and the emphasis of its significance is shown to have been understood by Sir Francis Bacon and Saint Germain. Here are several profound ways. I and the Father are one. That's 11:22:33, encoded in the Bible. But more importantly, the following phrases, when decoded with the 369 cipher, reveal the most astonishing things. 2 shall become 1 adds up to 11:22. William Shakespeare, wow, that's incredible. The Torah of Moses, Enoch walked with God, all of these. 11:22, I'm the first and the last, concealed mystery. 13th zone, being divinely guided. This is really profound. And remember from earlier episodes, cipher and seals in simple English add up to 11:22 as well. This important key code is mirrored in the zodiac itself, with the cusp dates and month name values echoing a resounding 11:22. The truth in plain sight. The church used the symbolism and told us that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the representation of the 4 corners of the equilateral cross. Sure it is. And yet, in some pictures, they put the bull, lion, and eagle on those 4 directions, which are the fixed signs. So they knew exactly what these keys were. The sacred science was well understood. the message in the stars, the gospel of the stars, the precision of the information and the science is astonishing, especially when we understand that the shafts in the Great Pyramid point exactly to the fixed stars that are the key messages and symbols in the story of ascension, the path of the middle way, the knowledge of ascending the ladder for soul ascension. Focusing in now on the first pillar. It's really amazing because I made this slide today while I was recording this, and I was constructing it thinking, I'm going to call it Divine Pathway of Numbers. And then a little voice in my head said, and that's going to add up to 126, and it sure did. This is the kind of amazing things that happen around this material. Further, November 22nd adds up to 261. Light codes 612, as we saw before, snake and the bird, which are a representation of the story of who we are from the beginning of time. The wisdom of two types of energies coming together. We'll get more into that later. Venus the Rose, the way of the eternal, or the ways of the eternal. The eternals being the Ancient of Days and the divine consciousness that we all can become by walking this path. 126 plus 261 equals 387, which is the last column. And the last column phrase adds up to 163. Remember what we said about off by 1. It's the same as if it was 162. And the ways of the eternal in the 396 cipher is also 1296, which is 1 plus 2 is 3, 396. Pretty profound. Speaking of profound, how could it not have been known when so many things demonstrate these values? The Hebrew Bible says that the Holy One created man in the image of God. The Hebrew word in the image is made up of 4 letters. Those 4 letters and their values total 162. Are you kidding me? Sir Francis Bacon Bible codes is 126 in the 369 cipher, 1111, 126. Wow. The value of the extended phrases in simple English is 432. The Great Pyramid of Giza is 432. The Grand Gallery, 261 degrees. Isn't this something? Look at all these messages in simple English. The word is key, 126. No beginning, no end. God is geometry. The throne of God. Frequency is the key. The way to ascend. Enoch is the keeper of the key. And this master of the secrets. Ancient Egyptian name for the hidden wisdom keeper. And the perfect light. It is truly divine, the way this intelligence is laced throughout all these significant things. And the Fibonacci sequence falling the way that it does with the message clearly was understood. All the key things that can be observed when you know what you're looking for. 33 emphasizes the message of ascension. The word 33 in 369 cipher is 936. Wow. Ascension is the middle pillar. values that highlight the way. Ascension is also 238 in Hebrew, and we'll come to understand the significance of 238, which is truly astonishing in one of the upcoming episodes. Set Nupti pointing the way, the two becoming one, will be echoed in a variety of ways as we proceed as well. Ascension is the most ancient story, which is a divine birthright to mankind. And this is the way to access divine consciousness. Isa was the original Son of Man, born of immaculate conception. This was because Osiris did not have a phallus after being cut up into 14 pieces by Set. Isis went around and found all but the last piece, the lingam, and the way that Isis conceived a child was after she went through the 14 temples of initiation, she gained the wisdom for accessing the Hall of Records, where she gained the knowledge of how to genetically engineer a more divine race. This mirrors the story of Adam and Eve. In the Gnostic tradition, it says that Eve was raped by the watchers of the garden, and that she actually did not have a child by Adam until after they got out of the garden, and they conceived a son whose name was Seth, and Seth was considered to be a Christ child. All the biblical stories actually come from the original Egyptian stories, such as Cain and Abel. The killing of Cain by Abel is the same story as Set and Osiris. So there's these mile markers in the story of the ascended beings. You can pause this and study it a little closer. But each of the beings that came with the story of a Christ have exactly the same mile markers. In fact, there was other beings or individuals that became divine men, as they were called, such as Apollonius, who was contemporaneous to Jesus, well, maybe about 30 years before, who went through the mystery school, same as Simon Magus, and they became Christed. And so in the Christ model, there are these mile markers or highlights of the story that represent different phases of initiation. And so the many that have come to remind us of the way to ascend have been from the first cause level, one of the 12 of the 24, one of the original couples that went off and created everything, who imbued themselves into their creation to remind themselves how to return home. It's pretty profound. Why else do they all have the same story, the same message? It's also pretty profound to realize that there is a lost twin story that nearly all indigenous cultures and belief systems on the planet have. We will dig deeper into this in the next episode. So as we begin to wrap up here, let me further say that the twins represent the mind and the heart, the king and the high priest. The king being like the father to the people, and the high priest being the teacher. In fact, the Essenes were waiting for the teacher of righteousness and the king of righteousness. And then the two children that were brought to Egypt, which the Bible supposes and the theologian suppose, that the second child was John the Baptist. However, with everything that's going to be presented, that will become highly unlikely. In 2005, there was another lost gospel, a Gnostic gospel that was found, called the Gospel of Judas. It's very interesting and reveals some very significant things. Let's take a look here. When Jesus heard this, he laughed and said to him being Judas, "You 13th spirit, why do you try so hard?" Essentially saying, you're already more divine than you realize. And further, in another paragraph, Jesus answered and said, "You will become the 13th, and you will be cursed by the other generations, and you will come to rule over them. In the last days they will curse your ascent to the holy generation." It is assumed these texts were kind of badly frayed and lost, but further says he made 72 luminaries appear in the incorruptible generation in the accordance with the will of the Spirit. The 72 luminaries themselves made 360 luminaries appear in the incorruptible generation in accordance with the will of the Spirit. Their number should be 5 for each. Very interesting considering what we've seen about 5 and what we've learned about 72 being half of or 36 double, which correlates to the compass. Of course, 360 degrees is further evidence of that. Again, here we can see in the tube tours that Marco Rodin made popular an echo of the geometry or number patterns of the unfolding creation according to a divine blueprint of numbers. And it is most profound to realize there is one other person aside from Jesus that went into a cloud, and we can see that here. Judas lifted up his eyes and saw the luminous cloud, and he entered it. Those standing on the ground heard a voice coming from the cloud saying, and of course, again, lost text, but great generation, something or other, image, perhaps something like in the image of. Here's some more significant things from the Gnostic scriptures. 22 years ago, I discovered this and had a deep insight or inner knowing regarding what this meant. When the perfect number is complete and all is raised up, I will sit in the treasury of light, and you yourselves will sit on the 12 light powers until we have set up again all the ranks of the 12 saviors of the place of inheritance of each of them. Wow. So this certainly emphasizes that we are all fragments of the original 12 and that we are indeed divine and can access our eternal consciousness. And as the shards of light or aspects of those original souls, we are essentially versions. And it is up to us to go online, so to speak, with the oversoul and embody all that we are. In fact, this is something of what the braiding is. Jesus was braided when he was baptized with Maitreya and Sanat Kumara, and I've had some experience with this braiding, and therefore understand how we can embody more and more of ourselves as we do the work and align and further request upgrades and empowerments for providing greater service to humanity. And these types of things were taught in the mystery school. Let's take a look at this. This is pretty significant and profound as well. You should pause this and read this. This is very important in understanding that even then there was writings and understandings that there were deeper mysteries for accessing wisdom and obtaining divine consciousness. The students and initiates of the Gnostic mystery schools wore a 7-pointed star, and this signified many things, which we will continue to peel the onion on for greater understanding as we proceed. And so in closing, let's take a little more information from the Emerald Tablets and Thoth. He says, O Lord, show me the path, give me the path to the wisdom, show me the way to the word. Answered me then, through order you shall find the way. And indeed, it all adds up, it all makes sense. There is a masterful system of interwoven numbers that reveal a way to ascend by understanding the numbers, being imprinted, having them trigger the awakening and activation of DNA so that our own wisdom can guide us more deeply into all that we are. And of course, working with the seventh seal activator helps, and paying attention to the synchronicity of numbers in our life for the guidance to the things that accelerate our growth. And finally, we've seen this a number of times, but let's take a deeper look at it. The 7 hermetic principles. These are super keys to having a deeper understanding of everything. Everything follows these basic rules. 1. Mind and thought. 2. Heart and emotions. 3. Vibrations or energy. 4. Magnetic and electric. 5. Algorithm flow, sound, frequency. And 6. Cause and effect. And 7. Male and female. So everything in creation matches these 7 things in one way or another, and nothing exists if we don't have all this in balance. And the only way to access divine consciousness is to bring all of this into balance. So, thank you for tuning in. That will be the end of episode 2. Thank you. Many blessings.